You know, The Binding of Isaac was a game that initially creeped me out because, seriously, being infected with blowflies honestly does not make for a pretty sight. I recall seeing an image a while back of a baby chick that had a blowfly problem, basically infected with blowflies, to the point where one could not see his eyes because his head was covered with swollen bulbs. But I digress. Once you mentally distance yourself from the nature of this game, The Binding of Isaac becomes an enjoyable and affordable roguelike that comes with several hours of replayability. No doubt, many roguelikes today have a formula similar to that of The Binding of Isaac, including Starward Rogue, The Madness of Little Emma, Rogue Knight, Enter the Gungeon, and many more. I found that I've always came back to The Binding of Isaac after playing several other games, and have been spending some time figuring out as to why. To this end, I've spent 228 hours in the original Binding of Isaac, and currently 352 hours in the Binding of Isaac Rebirth and its Afterbirth expansion. I should make clear before I continue on, of course, that by Binding of Isaac I'm referring to the latest iteration, which is the Binding of Isaac Rebirth with the Afterbirth expansion. The first and most obvious feature is the randomization and procedural generation, as without these features, the Binding of Isaac would not have its level of replayability. Basically, each run will be a different experience, if not always, unless you are very lucky or unlucky, depending on how you see it, which pretty much prevents any expectation of dependency on the assortment of rooms, enemies, and items you encounter, until by the stage that you end up memorizing all of them. Over time, one ends up tackling each run with a set of generalized and adaptable strategies while learning the habits of each enemy and boss, and the rest is down to mechanics. The other thing that makes The Binding of Isaac a relatively enjoyable game is a low learning curve or a low barrier to entry. The Binding of Isaac is easily played on a controller or keyboard with a fairly simple control scheme that is easy to memorize. This basically means that the amount of upfront information one has to process when playing the game is minimized, and this allows the player to pretty much transition just to experiencing the environment, experiencing the game without having to worry, oh wait, what's this key, and then having to break that sense of immersion. Basically, the simple control scheme allows me, like maybe if I played The Binding of Isaac for say 50 hours and then I take a break to play other games, and then I come back to The Binding of Isaac. Because the control scheme is simple enough, it allows me to come back and jump straight into a game of The Binding of Isaac without feeling like I have to relearn anything. And that to me is also a huge plus of the game, which basically means that once I jump back in, the rest is smooth sailing. The Binding of Isaac also does not actually require a lot of active attention once you've been playing it for a while, and I found that it's become a game that I can play when I'm listening to a podcast or when I'm just killing time. Maybe like if I'm cooking something in the kitchen, I'm keeping an ear out for the microwave to beep or other things like that. It's a game where I can zone out and not worry, not fret, simply because it doesn't require 100% of my attention to play. And since I'm not too invested in actually winning, I'm more invested in actually kind of just playing the game, having something to occupy myself. The expectation to win and the expectations I put onto myself are fairly low. It's become much more of a relaxation game for me rather than a game that I can sit down and try to do, try to force myself to maybe get a winning streak or such. And obviously this was not an enjoyable experience when I was attempting challenges on The Lost or The Keeper, but I've actually completed them now, so at least now I do not need to worry about them so much. The other thing is that when you look at The Binding of Isaac, you notice its art style. It's got a consistent, distinct style, and that is a feature of indie games that I love to explore. It's essentially looking at an indie game, looking at its unique style, and you can see sort of the flavor of the artist who drew the illustrations. That also gives the game its unique flavor, its unique feel, and The Binding of Isaac is definitely one of those with its unique art style, and sort of the way it's set up is such that Whenever you see an image from the game anywhere, you can immediately recognize that it's from The Binding of Isaac. The art style also adds its own unique spin on illustrating the story and sort of just giving you the kind of flavor that is sort of cartoonish, which means it's not completely serious, but for those who know the story is fairly dark, and as such, you can imagine that mix of the fairly dark story combined with the light art style makes for something that is lighthearted but has evil, malicious roots underneath it. I think to this end, there's no doubt that The Binding of Isaac is a popular indie game that has pretty much set the bar for future roguelites, and with Afterbirth Plus in the works, no doubt the hard work of its own development team, The Colors, will easily show in this and future titles. As always, thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you enjoy or have enjoyed about The Binding of Isaac. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more videos like this one on Sundays. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.